Hi, I'm Doug Bowles, president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thank you for listening to Behind the Bricks. We're excited to bring you this exclusive and entertaining content about the world's greatest racetrack. Keep listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecast, radar, and Indiana sports all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere.
Indianapolis Motor Speedway fans, Doug Bowles here with you for another episode of Behind the Bricks. As we get ready for the Driven to Save BC39 presented by Avanti Windows, we wanted to give you a little sneak preview of just how Bryan Clauson's legacy is living on here in Central Indiana, not just in the name of the race. We're going to start right here at the Indiana Donor Network and then travel around Central Indiana. So we're inside the Indiana Donor Network offices, and I'm here with a faces familiar to short trackers for sure and racers around the country, Taylor McLean, who's the Senior Marketing Director for the programs around here, including the Bryan Clauson program, as you see her at racetracks, making sure you all are signing up. We're right outside the Bryan Clauson Legacy Suite, which has been here for quite some time now. Taylor, thanks for having us. This really exists because of the experience that your family had when Bryan was donating.
Yeah, you know, the Bryan Clauson Legacy Suite is really important to us at Indiana Donor Network. In 2020, we kind of moved and facilitate donation now out of this building. So we have donors come here, we have their families come here. And this suite is really an opportunity for families to spend their final moments with their loved ones. It's really important. It's something that our family, really held special and held close to our hearts was those final 3 days we got to spend with Bryan. And so, the hope is for this to provide comfort to those families as well who want to be by their loved one's side through the entirety of the donation process.
So let's go in and take a look at it because this isn't just a hospital room. This is an opportunity for families to be together in those moments, as Taylor talked about, that are super difficult, but also really special and life-lasting. So why don't we wander in here and check this out.
Yeah, so when you come in here, the first thing we have is kind of a family space for family members to be able to hang out and kind of gather together. We have some video games if we have kids that come in. We have some really cool comfort shawls, blankets, pillows, anything to make the family comfortable. One of my favorite pieces in this room is this letter from our family to the donor family who's being served in this room. And so it's a way for us to just extend our condolences for their loss, but also tell them that, they're not alone in this journey and that their loved one is going to save lives. So this space provides that opportunity for families to still be with their loved one, but kind of take a moment and kind of start to grieve a little bit.
So it's connected right here to where the loved one would be and where the family can be right inside this room as well. Gives them an opportunity to stay connected, be together, but also have a little moment to themselves if they need to.
Yeah, and this space is really cool because it is a private ICU space. So, our clinical staff, the people that are facilitating donation and facilitating this gift of life are still able to do their jobs without, putting the family out at all. So the family can sit right here while, labs are being drawn or tests are being run or things like that. And they can really, again, spend those final moments by their loved one's side the entire time that they're here.
So the other thing about this, there's a difficult moment for a family here, but on the flip side, there are families who are celebrating the fact that this gift is actually going to keep somebody else alive.
Yeah, it's incredible. One of the moments that sticks out in my mind the most when we lost Bryan was we were gathered around his hospital bed saying our final goodbyes, and I think it was my dad that kind of spoke up, and he was like, I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but there are 5 other families that just received a call that their loved one is going to be saved. In this very moment, they're gathered around their loved ones celebrating this gift of life. And so, it is a very heavy thing that we do here, but it's also a very beautiful thing that we do on the flip side. And to be able to have this space and allow family members to kind of go through that journey together is very special.
So there you have it, race fans. You see Taylor at the racetracks as she's asking you to sign up to become a donor. not only is she doing that on her weekends, this is what she's doing during the week, making sure that families are comforted as they are having a loved one give a donation of life, knowing that their families on the other side that are going to continue to live, all thanks to the fact that Bryan Clauson was a donor. So I'm standing in Forest Park in Noblesville, Indiana, where Bryan Clauson grew up, right in front of this Indiana Racing Memorial Association plaque that was put here to remember what Bryan Clauson did on track, but on the backside, it really talks about what he did off track and those 5 individuals he saved by being an organ donor. And Bryan Clauson, when he won races, he said, parked it in victory lane. This bench says parked it. Now, we're gonna go see where the cars were built that Bryan Clauson parked in victory lane. So we are at Clauson Marshall Racing right now, and I'm standing here with Tim Clauson, who runs this race team, but is Bryan Clauson's dad. Thanks for having us. This is such a cool place. The history of Bryan right here.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Thanks for coming out, and always enjoy seeing you and you being here.
So it all starts really right in here. I mean, you have chronologically the beginning of Clauson Marshall Racing through Bryan Clauson, but a lot of the things he did. This is just an amazing way to celebrate his success on the racetrack.
Yeah, and really what we wanted to do, when we lost Bryan, I think probably the thing that I wasn't expecting was the stories that we were getting from fans and all these interactions that he had away from the racetrack.
Right.
I think we all knew, and especially me, being a big part of his racing for so long, is I knew who he was and what he was and the person he was at the racetrack. But we started getting all these stories from, the hotel on morning of, Four Crown. And people would come up and start sharing these intimate moments with us that were stories we didn't know.
Yep.
And so when we decided to continue racing, something that became important to me was that we would be able to do something that we could share back with the fans of the sport. And this is what we were able to create to do that.
So it really starts from the beginning.
Yeah, it really
and rolls
does.
through here, right?
Yeah, so Bryan, again, unbeknownst to me, really, he kept, just so much of things that were important to him in his career.
Right.
And really from the very beginning,
Right.
his very first fire suit was
Right.
there, his very first helmet. We've got the very first trophy that he ever won. And so that was kind of like, if we're going to do this, we've got this stuff, let's just kind of build at least one wall that's kind of shows his path through the sport. So
do you have favorite places inside here that for you, or things that really trigger a memory?
I do, and what's interesting is obviously everything has my story
Right.
with Bryan, right? That suit, that Pizer Fence Company was actually a guy I was driving a sprint car for.
Because you were a race car driver, so that's how come you got it. I mean, you got it naturally, right?
Yeah, if you use the term loosely enough, I was a race car driver. But no, I was driving for the Pizer Fence Company, and Friday night, I think it was, we raced someplace, didn't have a good night, and Chuck Prather is the gentleman who owned it, and we decided that we were better friends than we were owner driver.
Right.
And so he says I was fired, I say I quit. But the next day he shows up at the quarter midget track, and what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I got something for Bryan. And it was that suit. Yeah. And he said, I fired you, but not, your kid will always drive for me if he wants to. So, so we got that, and, the helmet up there, we believe that was the very first autograph that he ever did on that helmet.
Pretty amazing, yeah.
So then we get down into the, further into it, and you can see where his, this really does represent, this is when it got busy.
Yep.
The Chasing 200, racing for Tony and the Silver Crown stuff, and then he went on to drive the 20 car, which is an iconic USAC sprint car. USAC championships to the Chili Bowl display, some midget stuff, and then this area here is probably the most special to me because it represents the 3 wins that he had at Belleville. Yep. Belleville was that was the place where Bryan felt he was like that's the separator.
Yep.
Winning races in quarter miles and 3/8 and even half miles are special. If you do it at the level he was doing it, because man, when you go to Belleville, it really separates the men's from the boys, and so for him to get to win it 3 times, and of course he was leading it for the 4th when he had his accident. It's hard to come in sometimes, but it definitely is it is a reflection of Bryan. That is who Bryan was and is.
That's pretty amazing. And over here you've sort of got a throwback to the beginning, but also some of this is typically where your Indy 500 stuff is.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you know, the Indy 500 became, it was always important to him growing up in Indiana, right? And you know, he was the kid that we would go race, but on practice days at the Speedway, he'd get out of school. I'd take him out of school. Don't tell Di. But and we'd go down and we'd watch practice, and it was always the, you know, someday. And so in 2012, he got that opportunity with Sarah Fisher and Andy. And so when we decided to do this room, Sarah and Andy actually reached out to me and they said, hey, we know you're doing this. We've got some stuff we want to give you. And they basically had everything that was in the garage from 2012. So the pictures up here are from the garage. Obviously the signage that was above the garage and in the garage. And what Sarah wanted to do was, it was really brilliant because Bryan was a rookie. He was young, obviously not the traditional way now that you go Indy 500 racing. But she wanted to put stuff up that would remind Bryan that, you know, if we have a bad day on the track, you pull into this garage and you're going to look around and be reminded what a badass race car driver you were. So she has all that, or had all that, gave it to us. So we had this display. It was basically you'd walk in here and it would look just like the garage. But now a lot of that stuff has ended up at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. They do some stuff where they rotate it in and out, which is cool for us because Bryan gets represented, but not only does Bryan get represented, but the Indy 500 IMS gets represented there as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So final question for you. You lose Bryan, but in a lot of ways, something you didn't know has probably put Bryan's legacy on a platform that nobody, no matter how many races he won, the whole donor network piece and the connection with the Indiana Donor Network and the idea that he was a donor, and we get to do that around the BC, really talk about Driven to Save. How powerful is that for you?
It's everything. Not only did he save 5 lives with his donation, he literally saved my life with his decision to donate. And I share this story because I think it really brought to me the impact of it. So when we lost Bryan, we spent the 72 hours with him in the hospital as they got him healthy enough to be able to donate his organs. And as we were leaving, it was my wife that said, we have a whole other team sitting in Knoxville, Iowa right now. We really need to go spend time with them. And, and she was right, 100% right. So we went there. And I say that to say this, is that the first morning I walked into Knoxville, which was a very special place to Bryan and I had a gentleman walk up to me and he says, Tim, can I share my story with you? So instantly I think he's going to share Bryan's story. It had nothing to do with Bryan. It was the story of his wife, how she was a recipient, and for years they had been trying to meet their donor family. And for whatever reason, they hadn't connected. And he said, I just want you to know that you and your wife now give us that family to look at, to represent donors. So I knew then how important it was and how important it was for us as a family to make sure that we recognize that. And did I have any idea that that little heart on the license was going to turn into, where we are now? No, but I'm sure glad that it did.
Well, that's pretty powerful, and it's meant a lot to our racing community. It also shows how the racing community can come together to support a family, but also together to make a difference. And you ought to be awful proud of Taylor. And speaking of Taylor, let's go back and talk to Taylor a little bit about how you all can participate and keep Bryan Clauson's legacy going. So there you've seen it. All over central Indiana, Bryan Clauson's legacy lives on. He was an amazing race car driver, but what he's done beyond his lifetime is more powerful than I think anybody, even Bryan, probably understood. You can participate as well to continue to help the Bryan Clauson Foundation and the Bryan Clauson legacy live on through the Bryan Clauson Legacy Fund. Taylor, tell us how, as race fans, we can continue to support the mission that Bryan started and your family continues.
Yeah, one thing really cool about the Bryan Clauson Legacy Fund is we provide, things for donor families, funds to be able to help them through the donation process, gas cards, hotel stays, things like that. And we try to just take care of them from the start of donation to the end. And one way you can help is by donating to the Bryan Clauson Legacy Fund. It's really easy. You just go to indianadonornetwork.org. We have a foundation website. You go on there, and a part of that is the Bryan Clauson Legacy Fund, and you can donate right there on the website.
That's awesome. So there you go, race fans. Continue to support Bryan Clauson's legacy through the Legacy Fund. That information right below us. Click on it, make a donation, and in the meantime, we'll see you at the Driven to Save Lives BC 39 presented by Avanti Windows at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Taylor and I will be there making sure you're signed up to be a donor. Thank you, fans, for listening to this episode of Behind the Bricks. We look forward to bringing you more exciting content about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway soon.